Thanks, Scott, and thank you for attending this talk today. I'm delighted to reacquaint myself with this collection. I actually spoke at the Huntington Museum in West Virginia a number of years ago, and so I feel like I'm coming back to some old friends when I look at these paintings again. I want to thank you for coming to this lecture today at the start of what I know is a long football weekend. You are also going to perhaps miss President Obama telling us how we can all get jobs later this evening. So there's all kinds of reasons why I'm delighted that I was able to pull you into this talk, although I suspect it's not me. I think it's voodoo. Or at least the voodoo that I'm going to tell you about, which is probably a different phenomena from the one that you think you might know. I've often felt that voodoo suffered not from what people knew about it, but from what people thought they knew about it. So maybe I can shed some light in that matter, and maybe I can begin a dialogue with you all. I've done this sort of thing often enough, and I've been a professor often enough so that nobody can throw me by shouting out from the audience, by tossing things, by jumping up and down, by saying that's not right or great point. I don't mind any of that. I like it. So feel free to respond as you will in my talk. And if I'm not covering something in the images that we're going to look at today, ask me about it. It's better to do it at that time than wait till afterwards. I'm going to give in a little more background to Scott's gracious introduction to me, because I think it's important to talk in some further detail about how I came to be interested in this subject, because I think it'll shed light on what I have to say about the subject as our talk continues. I've worked around with scholars following Paul Gilroy, now called the Black Atlantic World, ever since I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Nigeria in the mid-1960s. As Scott mentioned, I was a community organizer in Orangeburg County, South Carolina, which is important too, because all of my sense of Africa and of the African cultural experience is based on the premise that Africa is more than a continent. Africa is wherever people of African descent have settled. So I think of the New World as very much part of the Africa that I work in. My constant focus, whether on this side of the Atlantic or the other side of the Atlantic, has been on myth and ritual, and more particularly on religious cultures and how they express themselves through art. My first visit to Haiti was in 1986, a follow-up to my African research. My desire at that point was to find out what happened to all of the African myths that I had been studying in West Africa, how they got developed and redeveloped in a New World context. I soon learned that Haiti was not a footnote to anything. It was a 5-act drama in its own right. It is truly one of the most singular places on earth. We often hear that it's the poorest country in the New World. But do we also hear that Haitians create some of the most original and powerful art in the New World? Do we learn that it is the only country in the history of the world that was created out of a successful national slave revolt? Or that its national religion of Vodou, far from being the farrago of zombies and dolls stuck with pins, has been the source of inspiration for its artists and the sustaining spiritual resource for its people? So I want to begin by considering the prophetic words of this artist whose image is on the board. His name is André Pierre, perhaps one of the 2 or 3 greatest artists of the 20th century in Haiti, and a man who came to be my friend. He, in one of our early meetings, described to me the relationship between art and spirit while he was standing at his easel, the easel that you see there with his painting in the courtyard of his compound in a small town called Croix de Bouquet in North Haiti. So these are André Pierre's words. I feel a bit like a preacher reading sacred text here, but I think it's important for what's going to follow. André Pierre said, "The Vodou religion is before all other religions. It is more ancient than Christ. It is the first religion of the earth. It is the creation of the world. The world is created by Vodou. The world is created by magic. The first magician is God, who created people with his own hands from the dust of the earth. People originated by magic in all countries of the world. No one lives of the flesh. Everyone lives of the spirit." People who are not aware of this are not profound in their studies. They write and they read, but their study is not profound. It is not sufficient to read from a book. You must study nature. You must study people. You must study your neighbors. You must study that all is dust and all will return to dust. You must study that people possess nothing. You should eat well, drink well, sleep well, enjoy your soul, wait for the last day. My life is very simple. I've been alone since I was 5. I have no father, no mother, no grandfather, no grandmother. I have been the master of my personality since the age of 14. I am the protector of my life, me, God, the spirits, and the dead. I paint to show the entire world what the Vodou religion is, because 3/4 of the terrestrial globe think that the Vodou religion is diabolical. I paint to show them that Vodou is not diabolical. The Vodou religion is purely Catholic, apostolic, but not Roman. It is not directed by men. It is directed uniquely by God. Since all people are liars, no one is Catholic. Only God and his spirits are Catholic. The spirits of Vodou are the limbs of God. God is the body and the spirits are the limbs. To use Vodou, you must be an honest man, one who likes his neighbors, because it is your neighbor who is God. You receive nothing from God. You receive everything from your neighbor. God passes everything through the hands of your neighbor. If you do not know your neighbor, do not put your faith in your God who loves you. To love God, you must pass through your neighbor. Love, love. Those who do not love are nothing. Love of God, love of neighbor, love of work, love for doing some good. When we have to do something, love of doing it well. You must not judge anyone. One does not know, for God told you, "You will not see me, but you will see the poor always with you." When they come to your home to ask for charity, have the courtesy to say, "I have nothing this morning. Pass by in a few days and I will leave something for you." But don't ignore them. Don't deceive them. Why not love the poor? Why do you not have the poor live with you? It is only Vodou which welcomes the poor. Vodou allows you to walk with your head held high. Religion makes you walk with your head low. But with Vodou, you can fight any war. All men are warriors. But with religion, no. Men are slaves. It's always yes, yes. You don't have the right to say anything but yes to everything they tell you. Slaves of slaves. I can hear his voice now. Esclave d'esclave. You don't have a personality. But with Vodou, you keep your personality. I want or I don't want. But in religion, there is neither I want nor I don't want. That's what personality is, the return of the Guinea spirits. Now, Guinea in Vodou parlance, in the Creole language, Guinea is just a generic term for Africa. And Africa is not the continent that you know from the globe. Africa is where we come from, but it might just as easily be imagined as existing under the ocean, as existing across the ocean. It's another place. It's the original place. It's Guinea. After Haiti's independence in 1804, they returned, they being the spirits who Haitians called the Loa. Guided by the star of the Messiah, guided by the star and the cross of Christ, Judah's tribe, the roots of David, Ogu returned with a red and blue flag, and the woman saint brought the Congo paquet. Ogu took away the white and left a bicolore. He changed the country. He took the white away from the French flag. He said, I am giving this land back to you, and I am coming home. If you've ever seen the Haitian flag, it's red and blue. It was created by ripping the white out of the tricolore of the French flag. Now, I think this is probably the most essential set of statements he had to make in light of the show that you have upstairs. He said, before I paint, I take this canvas and I put it on the easel. I wait for an inspiration before describing it on earth. Then an inspiration comes. I sing a song, and then I describe what I sang. I describe the song on the canvas. Wow. I describe the song on the canvas. Hell is on earth. Paradise is on earth. Purgatory is on earth. All is on earth. Nothing is in the sky. Nothing was made in the sky. No one needs to speak of the sky. Instead of talking about the sky, talk instead of the earth. God has said, if you don't believe me when I tell you about terrestrial things, how will you believe when I tell you about celestial things? God does nothing in the celestial. Even to create the sun and the moon, he put his foot on earth. All was created on earth. I have confidence in the spirits. I love the spirits. I live with the spirits. I respect the spirits. I do what I want with the spirits, and they do what they want with me. Because they have confidence that I will never betray them, that is why I have confidence in the spirits. And those are the words of Andre Pierre, a man who never formally went to school. You have two objects in the gallery upstairs that were created by Andre Pierre. This and the object that follows were painted on the insides of calabashes, gourds which hang from trees and are hollowed out, and the inside can create a kind of easel. And the first of these slides he calls Mambo Pai. Mambo is the Creole word for a female priestess. There are as many women priests in Vodou as there are male priests. She wears the colors of the oldest of all of the spirits, the oldest of all the Loa in Vodou, who is Dambala, the snake divinity. His color is white, so she wears a white gown, but she has tied around her waist a belt which is in the form of snakes, because snakes are in fact representations of Dambala. She carries in her hand a sacred rattle, which is what's used to call the spirits in a Vodou ceremony. It's called an asan. And when you become a priest, which is an ungan, or you become a priestess, a mambo, they say that you acquire the asan. You acquire the power to control the movement of the spirits. Now note, it's all very complex, but in a half an hour you'll be ready to take an exam in this all. You notice that in back of her are painted a series of designs. These are called in Vodou, they're called veve, and each of the Loa have their own veve, or their own designs, which I think of as kind of engraved invitations to the Loa to come and visit. These particular veve are created for the sacred twins, because twins are considered divinities in Haiti. When you give birth to twins, you're considering giving a birth to an aspect of the Godhead. But the twins are more than two, they're three. It's considered that the child that follows the twin is also part of the twins, so that in Haiti 2 equals 3. And when you begin a ceremony, you often invoke the twins, or the marasa, as they're called in Creole, M-A-R-A-S-A, and the rest of the spirits will come. Well now here is that spirit that she's calling. This is in fact Dambala, the snake god. You see the snakes gathered here on the top of his cane. But he is in the form of a Catholic saint. Andre Pierre meant him to look like St. Patrick, and the reason why we know he must be a representation of St. Patrick is that he's carrying those snakes, and of course St. Patrick drove the snakes out of Ireland. It's important to recognize all of these iconographic devices because, in fact, Catholic saints are often used in Haitian art to signify the presence of African divinities who, as I said, are called Loa. The correspondence between Loas and saints are always metonymic, which means that Haitians have seen pictures of the saints and they find something in that picture that relates to their idea of their own divinities, which is how a metonymy works. In this particular case, the metonymy is the snakes that are associated with St. Patrick. So Vodou has found a way to use the Catholicism that was forced upon the slaves when they entered the French colony of Saint-Domingue before Haiti became a country. But it's, I think, incorrect to think of that as an unwelcome imposition. I'm saying that because the societies that I know in West Africa, and this is true in Haiti also, are not only multilingual and multicultural, but they're often multi-religious, which is to say that there isn't this idea of the jealous God who wants no other gods. There's an openness to spirituality wherever it can be found. And so while the Loa all or mostly trace their ancestry to Africa, there are spaces for spiritual forces from and secular forces from all over the world to come into the pantheon of spirits that is the presiding element over Vodou. There's a little story there that I think exemplifies that kind of tolerance which describes Vodou as a religious tradition. And it concerns the missionary priests coming to Dahomey, which is now the Republic of Benin in West Africa, in the 17th century. And they tell the king of Dahomey, whose capital was at a place called Abomey, about this divinity called Jesus, who they're catechizing. And the king is very interested in what the missionaries have to say. And he says that he's so impressed that he's going to build a temple for this new divinity of Jesus. And the priests, the Jesuit priests, are very happy to hear this, except they're horrified when he tells them that he's going to put the temple for Jesus right next to the temple for Dambala, the snake god. And the priests say, no, you have to get rid of all of your other gods in order to have this new god. And of course, that whole idea made absolutely no sense whatsoever. Why would you get rid of two powerful spiritual things and just accept one? Well, that idea has never really changed. And so multi-religiosity, much to the despair of missionaries in the Black Atlantic world, is really a cultural fact in most parts of that world. Ergo, this splendid painting by one of the masters of 20th century Haitian art, a painter by the name of Rigaud Benoit. And in this painting, he is portraying the black African, the pan-black Atlantic divinities who are the mermaids, known by different names. In Haiti, they're called les sirènes, the sirens. In West Africa today, they're called mamiwata. In the islands of the Caribbean, they're sometimes called Merry Waters. In any case, they're mermaid divinities. They're always associated with trade and luxury goods. They are often emblems for cargo cult religions, which is to say religions that seek through their ritual practices to attract the goods that are missing from their societies. These sirens are what we in California refer to as bitch goddesses, which is to say goddesses who can turn on you as well as goddesses who can benefit you. In other words, her real proper home when it's not in the ocean is really in Las Vegas. And the Haitians know this, actually. She's called a loa achetée, a loa that can be bought. Her favors can be bought and sold. She's alluring and frightening. She's dangerous and immensely attractive, and she's all over the place. You see symbols of La Sirène, Les Sirènes, all over Vodou and all over the Black Atlantic world. I think like so much in Haitian Vodou culture, the sirènes are a product of creolization, which is to say a blending of one or more cultural resources into a new cultural phenomena. She's a Creole goddess. She represents the syncretism of Africa and Europe and what happened to both when they shipwrecked in the New World. I want you to consider this description of Les Sirènes by Haitian author Edwidge Danticat, a wonderful writer, by the way, from her book Crick Crack. She says, "I dreamt that I died and went to heaven. The heaven was nothing like I expected. It was at the bottom of the sea. There were starfishes and mermaids all around me. The mermaids were dancing and singing in Latin like the priests do at the cathedral during Mass." See, just in those brief sentences, think of how much culture is compacted in there, how many different things, how cosmopolitan this whole thing is. The mermaids are singing in Latin like the priests at the Mass. This painting is by Préfet Dufault, who comes from the town of Jacmel, which is very seriously damaged in the earthquake of 2010. It was sort of the Florence of Haiti. In other words, it was a place of great artistry. And he often painted his own town within his paintings. His town was between mountains, and you get that sense of the geography of Jacmel and whatever he does. So I think what he's doing in this painting is considering these same sirènes, these same mermaids, within the larger context of Vodou symbolism, where everything in the material world is in some kind of correspondence with everything else in the visible and invisible worlds. It's a very Franco-African idea, this idea of correspondence, this idea that everything in the world is balanced by everything else, with water as the dividing line between the visible and invisible worlds. There are those who've studied Vodou that say that the ultimate altar is the Atlantic Ocean. You know, that is the joining of this idea of the visible and invisible worlds. And so the water divinities are those divinities that can cross that line with ease. There is within Vodou the idea that there is a world under the sea that is the mirror of the world that we live in, although everything is backwards in that world. It's called Ambadlo at the bottom of the water. So the sea is one of the symbols for Ambadlo. The other symbol is the symbol of the Christian cross, which you see all over the place in Haitian art. But you've got to be careful, very careful when you see these crosses, because these crosses are really the crossroads. If you think of Robert Johnson's original blues song about finding the devil at the crossroads, it's really an old African idea. This idea that wherever you're at the crossroads, you're at that liminal space between the visible and the invisible. And so you see the cross all over the place in Vodou art. You see lots of veve. You already know about veve. You can pass that part of your exam already. The veve are calling the Loa into the scene because this is, in fact, a compilation of Vodou images. You see tables set out with sacrifices, delicious foods that will be floated on the water and will feed the water spirits that live underneath the water. This is called the Barque d'Agwe, because Agwe is the great Vodou admiral who is the ruler of the seas. And so when this is floated out, when it sinks into the arms of Agwe, who's waiting for it. The fire is for Ogun, who's the god of iron. So all of these things are laid out as if for a Vodou ceremony. Now what about these butterflies that are flying all over the place? I think the butterflies are the signs of transformation. The fact that in Vodou everything is on the verge of becoming everything else. That butterflies are born from chrysalises, that they are a symbol of the kind of transformation that happens when men become gods and gods become men, which is something that happens all the time in a Vodou ceremony. talks about the fluidity of form, the fact that no form is final or permanent, that everything is in a state of becoming. So somebody asked me earlier, what about the spider web? And I think it's the same idea here. The spider web, of course, connects the up with the down. At the center of the spider web is the most liminal of all insects, a spider who belongs to the insect world, but has the human art of weaving, so that the spider himself or herself crosses realities, is able to operate in the human as well as the animal realm. And of course reminds us that the most famous spider trickster in the world comes from West Africa, and that's Anansi the Spider. So these are all ancient African symbols which are recycled, you know. Somebody once said, a friend of mine once said, Haiti is a low-budget religion. It recycles everything. And so that's just sort of an example of all of the constant recycling that's going on as exemplified in this fantastic painting. Now you might ask, what do these flowers have to do with all of this profound philosophizing that old Cosentino is doing up here? Well, as I threatened Scott earlier in talking about this painting as we were walking through the gallery, I'm going to have to sing a line from a Beatles song. I have the world's worst voice. My wife says I can never keep on tune. Picture yourself in a boat by a river with plasticine flowers and looking-glass skies. Okay, well, they were going on to talk about an LSD trip, but you don't need LSD in Vodou. In Vodou, flowers are full of what Haitians call nam, or supernatural energy. So when we speak of humans having spirit, as we do within our Western religions, Haitians say, yes, people have spirits, but everything has spirit. Flowers have spirit, trees have spirit. They all share in that spirit which emanates ultimately from Damballa, the snake god. And so these are mystical flowers, as the artist says. I was thinking about the aproposness of these metaphors and how they're used in Cameron's movie Avatar. You know, when all of nature is alive there too, when the mother goddess lives in the tree. And that's a very voodoo idea, this idea that we live in a free-flowing world of spiritual energy, where flowers and animals and humans all are in correspondence with one another. These flowers may also be associated with particular lois, and whenever they appear in paintings, they signify the possession of spiritual power. Now you can look at this picture of Toussaint Louverture, the great hero of the Haitian Revolution, and understand what those flowers are doing there, right? Note that the mystic flowers which form a halo around the head of Toussaint Louverture indicate that he is the great hero of the Haitian Revolution. Now, Toussaint was in fact a man of many parts. He was a child of the Enlightenment and of Africa. He was born in Africa. He was a devout Catholic with no particular interest in Vodou, yet he is honored by those who practice Vodou as a loa. He is considered by many historians of the New World to be in the same category as Simon Bolivar or George Washington, which is to say one of the leaders of the three great revolutions of the end of the 18th century. And if you want to follow what I'm talking about in some kind of splendid detail, I would advise you to read C.L.R. James's magnificent book about Toussaint Louverture, Black Jacobins. And when you hop on a plane and take your next trip to Haiti, you will find that you're landing at Toussaint Louverture Airport. Now this painting is called Vive Papadak, and it's by Gesner Abelard. And it's a reminder that Vodou is also a scrim through which all of Haitian history can be interpreted. This is a history with outsized heroes like Toussaint Louverture and outsized villains like Papadak Duvalier, who is the person being honored at the National Cathedral in this painting. The painting signifies a celebration of Duvalier's presidency for life, because that's what he did. He proclaimed himself the president à vie for life and celebrated his self-proclaimed eternal presidency at the National Cathedral of Our Lady of Perpetual Help, which in fact collapsed in the catastrophic earthquake of January 12th, 2010. So this is an important moment then to pick up what the role of Catholicism is in Haiti. Catholicism was, for most of Haiti's history, the state religion established by a concordat with the Vatican in 1861. But more importantly, Catholicism is a resource for both the common people and the elite in Haiti. It's compatible with Vodou in ways that Pentecostalism or Protestantism is not, which is true throughout the Black Atlantic, whether we are talking about Haiti, Cuba, Trinidad, Brazil, or the great state of Louisiana. The saints of Catholicism have long since been syncretized with the gods of Vodou, the Loa. But Catholicism also serves as a resource for Vodou and not the other way around. Birth and death may be the occasions for visiting the church, may be the only occasions for visiting the church on the part of many Haitians, but they are important occasions. They mark important ritual moments. And in this particular case, Papa Doc is celebrating his own usurpation of power by going to the cathedral and forcing the priest basically to celebrate his ascension to the presidency for life. When we were looking at this painting earlier in the day, there was a little something that had totally passed my sight, and you can barely see it here in the slide, but if you go up in the galleries, you'll notice that there's a gourd hanging up here, and the gourd is decorated in blue and red. Now, blue and red are not only the national colors of Haiti, but they're the colors of the god of iron, Ogun, who I mentioned earlier, and clearly they're the god that's protecting Papa Doc and keeping him in power. So that's a voodoo charm, or wanga, as it's called in Creole, which is guarding his presidency. Little tiny details, these pictures speak to us in such significant ways, and we have to look very closely to capture the messages. Ditto for this. This is very difficult to read this painting unless you know something about Haitian history, and particularly the history of the Duvalier regime in the 50s. Duvalier had a bunch of goons that protected his administration, and they were called the Tonton Macoute, which translates as Uncle Sackcloth, because in Haitian folklore there's a devil or a evil figure in children's folktales that come and steal you away if you've been a naughty boy or girl. And so Haitians who have a wicked sense of humor started to call this kind of secret police force that Duvalier maintained the Tonton Macoute. And in this particular painting, Jasper John is comparing the Tonton Macoute to a group of monkeys, which is a very brave thing to do. Satire was not exactly encouraged by Papa Doc, as it's not encouraged by any dictators. And the theme of this painting is really the false initiation. In order to become a practitioner of Vodou, you have to be initiated in a Vodou temple. But here you see a kind of an inversion of initiation, where instead of humans working in the temple, you see a bunch of monkeys fooling around in the forest, and these monkeys are a representation of the inhumanness of the dictatorship that Haitians had to live under during this time. It's a kind of a debunking, almost a carnivalesque representation of this political phenomena. And you'll find as you look at Haitian painting that there's, in fact, a great deal of humor that comes into many of the paintings. This particular case, this is the initiate who's becoming a full-fledged monkey here. This would really resonate with a Haitian, because Haitians say that an initiated Vodou practitioner is a little leaf. The idea being that a Vodou community is a big tree, and each of us are leaves on the big tree. And so if you belong to a community, you are a tifé, a little leaf. But again, if you belong to the Tonto Makut, you're a little leaf monkey. To go on with that idea of satire or carnival, which is a very common element not only in Haitian society but in Haitian art, this is a representation of a festival which is absolutely unique to Haiti called Rara. Now you know, I mean, you're all living next to the state of Louisiana, so you know that that carnival is a very important ritual part of the year in many parts of the world that have been inflected by Catholic ritual. But Rara is a continuation of Carnival after Carnival ends. Carnival ends on Ash Wednesday, and after Ash Wednesday, all of the things of Carnival are supposed to be put away, and you're supposed to go into the 40 days of abnegation for Lent. But in Haiti, things are only getting started on Ash Wednesday. In Haiti, all of the celebrations go back to the Vodou temples, and everybody comes out and marches every day between Ash Wednesday and Easter. And the celebration is called Rara. It's the world turned upside down. Rara being born on the day Carnival dies, and dancing its way through Haiti from Ash Wednesday to Lent, ending with a major blowout on Easter Sunday, which is celebrated with all the brio of Super Sunday in our own country. Now, Rara also invokes Haitian history. Note, if you know anything about New Orleans Carnival, you note that the same figures appear. You have the Congo Kings, you have Indians in back, the skull and bones you have here. Skull and bones you have to be very careful with, because skull and bones in Voodoo usually don't signify merely death, but they signify death and rebirth. The god of death in Haiti, which is called the Baron Samedi or Gede, is also the god of sexuality and also the god of rebirth, so that the skull and bones are as likely to make you laugh as to make you afraid. And it's a sign that, you know, life goes on, that the god of death is also the god of sexuality, and so therefore a very potent metaphor for life continuing. We could spend the entire evening unpacking this painting, which is an X-ray vision of the supernatural interchanges at a Vodou ceremony. Now, a Vodou ceremony is a very busy affair. Lots of interaction between spirits and human beings. Consider this space. There's a middle pole, which is an axis mundi or ladder between worlds. Damballa, the cosmic snake, on whose back the world turns, is descending to the peristyle. You see him there. You see spirits coming up down from heaven also, being attracted by this pole. It's kind of like an electric conductor, which is spreading energy throughout the Vodou ceremony here. One woman whose arm is extended towards the angel above is becoming possessed. You see her here. Another woman at the base of the poteau mitin here has been overwhelmed by the loa. The written invitation of Veve are on the floor. You see them here. The drummers are pounding out the petro rhythms, the hot rites of voodoo. The ceremony is for Erzulie Danto, whose paintings you see here, who's the Earth Mother, the Black Madonna, who is also the symbol of not just of Haitian womanhood, but of country people, of rural people, of the people who hold closest to the old ways. It was Erzulie Danto, this very goddess, who is said to have started the Haitian Revolution in 1791. So it's her image which is on the back of the temple wall, surrounded, of course, by mystic flowers. Once again, you see the flowers in the background there. She is holding her daughter in her arms. Now, that daughter may look like the baby Jesus to you, but that's not the way things look to a voodooisant. A voodooisant knows that a country woman can't depend on her son to take care of her. She has to depend on her daughters. And so when they see this image, they see her holding her daughter, Anaïs. Near the poteau mitin is a black pig who's been sacrificed to Erzulie Danto. because it was in fact a black pig and the sacrifice of a black pig that began the Haitian Revolution in 1791. It's important to remember when you look at this picture that a voodoo ceremony is a communion festivity where the blood of a sacrificed animal infuses the loa with increased energy, and the flesh is cooked and consumed by all of those who take part in the ceremony. This painting, called Vision by Levoy Exil, or Vision in Creole, is an attempt, I think a very successful attempt, to portray in material forms the phenomena of spirit possession. Notice that the person is breaking out of her skin, out of her boundaries. She is and she isn't herself. She is being ridden by a spirit that's distorting her features, by pushing out her eyes, by pushing her in ways that indicate that it is no longer her spirit which is filling her, but the spirit of the loa which is coming to attend the ceremony. Now, the constant metaphor for this phenomena in Vodou is horse and rider. This has evidently been that metaphor for the phenomena of spirit possession for a long time in Vodou. But Vodou is always updating itself. So the first year I did research in Haiti, I had a friend, an informant named Abuja, who wanted to give me terms relevant to my own understanding of what happens during spirit possession. So these are his words to me. Abuja said, "In Voodoo, we consider a human being like a starship. You are a starship and your energy is the captain. You can put yourself in a state where another energy can take control of you. When you see a smoke in the sky, what do you say? You know there was a plane. The plane is gone. You don't see it anymore. It's the same thing when a person is possessed by a loa. The loa doesn't stay 6 or 7 hours within a person. It's like a hit, plack, and then it goes. It clears the consciousness of the person." Another example of spirit filling material form is worked out by this metalworker, and metalworking was another very important genre of the Haitian artistic renaissance in the mid-20th century, creating figures out of discarded oil drums. And in this particular case, the artist is showing the interchangeability of forms, animals, men, fish, all flowing into one another, all sharing in the energy of Nam, of Ashe, one thing becoming another, nothing settled, no form certain. Everything on the back of Dambala, the undulating snake. Ah, that black pig again. Lovely carved pig in the middle of the exhibition space. The carved black pig signifies more than pork chops in Haiti. It's sacred to that spirit of Erzuli Danto, the Black Madonna that we saw during the Voodoo ceremony. It's a sacrifice of the black pig to her initiated the Haitian Revolution, which scared the daylights out of most of the world, including President Jefferson of the United States, who was president at the time that Haiti was declared independent in 1804. I would only remind you in looking at that black pig that revolution was the only successful slave revolt in history, and that Haiti has been demonized ever since. It's important to remember that it was only during our own Civil War that Haiti was at last recognized as a country by the United States. Does anybody know who the first U.S. ambassador was to Haiti? Frederick Douglass. To make my point absolutely clear about the fluidity of forms, consider this painting, which is called Dahomey. Dahomey is the old name for the Republic of Benin in West Africa, and it's also the source for many of the religious ideas within Vodou. Sometimes Haitians refer to their own country as a little bit of Dahomey. So, but where is this Dahomey? Where in Haitian mythology, where in the consciousness of Vodou does it exist? Well, as I mentioned earlier, it's not really the continent of Africa anymore. Guinea is a place under the sea. It's a world en bas de l'eau, beneath the water, where everything is caught up in the folds of Damballa, the sacred snake, fish and men and beasts. All of creation is continuous. Death and sex erase the boundaries. The dark moment of the sun at the bottom of the sea is where all life ends and all begins. And if you look closely at this painting, you'll see that everything is enfolded within the snake-like forms. But it's everything blending into everything else. It's fish and humans and animal forms. And it's really a kind of a holograph of the entire world, but a mirror of our world as it exists under the water. So with that kind of fluidity and that kind of tolerance that we've seen exists as the basis of Haitian art and wisdom, how then do you account for this painting? It looks an awful lot like Dante's Inferno, or the pictures of hell that come out of sermons on Sunday morning at church. So what is the Vodou artist doing painting this scene, and what is he trying to say? Well, my suggestion is to you is that he is not painting what you're thinking. That this painting of the Inferno is only a reminder that in Vodou there is no hell. As we heard from Andrew Pierre say earlier, there is no hell, there is no heaven, there is only earth, and everything gets recycled back on earth. So it's a Haitian painter, in this particular case, Rigaud Benoit, who did those wonderful paintings of the Mermaids earlier on, who's looking at somebody else's idea of the afterworld. This is hell as a white man's problem, specifically hell as a Christian dilemma. What Benoit has done is to translate hell into a kind of a mock Vodou ceremony. He's turned the Christian nightmare into a carnivalesque joke with lots of black devils looking like they're wearing masks, kicking some serious butt. This is Vodou irony, akin to the wisdom of a Jesuit priest friend of mine who tried to square the problem of a beneficent God with everlasting damnation and came up with this formula: there is a hell, but no one is in it. Well, this is Benoit's take on this. This is his joke. This is his way of saying, so this is what these Christians are up to in their theology. Carnival. So what I've tried to do is to take a look at what I think are some of the masterpieces of a show of masterpieces upstairs. But before I conclude, I want to talk a little bit about how the pictures in this gallery and how the pictures that I showed today on the screen fit into a larger history of Haitian art, and particularly how it segues into contemporary Haitian art. So art as a commodity separate from religion or commerce has only a 3-generation history in Haiti. It was an American art teacher and connoisseur named DeWitt Peters who brought Haitian art into the world's view through the establishment of a cooperative called Le Centre d'Art in 1946. And Winslow Anderson, who was the collector of this exhibition upstairs, was a young artist working in Haiti in the 50s and 60s when he was able to construct the bulk of his collection of Haitian art, most of which he has donated to the Huntington, West Virginia Museum of Art. Since that time, Haiti has had a rough history. It barely survived the dictatorships of Papa Doc and Baby Doc Duvalier from 1957 to 1986, and a series of rapacious military juntas which followed their overthrow. By the early 90s, AIDS had begun to take its inexorable toll, and the boat people phenomenon began. But then a seeming miracle took place. Haiti held its first ever democratic election, and an immensely popular young firebrand priest named Jean-Bertin Aristide was elected to office. The military struck back, deposing Aristide, and the United States issued a blockade and ultimately invaded the island, restoring Aristide back to power in 1994. By century's end, a mood of relative optimism prevailed, but that rapidly dissolved into an accelerating series of social and natural catastrophes. By 2004, the bicentennial of Haiti's independence, the regime of Aristide unraveled into an orgy of kidnappings and gang violence, erasing the ephemeral hopes he had inspired a decade earlier. Even more terrible were the natural disasters which followed the social violence. Katrina-sized hurricanes and unprecedented floods in 2008, followed by the earthquake of January 12, 2010, which killed 250,000 Haitians in an instant and leveled much of the material culture of the world's first Black Republic. Little of this post-millennial apocalypse escaped the consideration of Haitian artists. Across a range of genres, they continue to represent and reinterpret these unfolding national disasters with unflinching vision and imagination. As things grow worse, their art only grows richer and stranger. Not surprising, really, since Haitian culture has been locked in a dance macabre with its own history since the Revolution of 1791 to 1804. This equation has remained constant. The worse the circumstances, the better the art. So I would like to end this lecture with two works of art which reflect Haiti's extreme circumstances during the first decade of its catastrophic 21st century. Now, if you remember that early painting that we looked at of celebrating Papa Doc's inauguration as president, we now see the National Cathedral, but it's collapsed here. And these are the people who are made homeless by that indescribably horrible earthquake. And this is the Baron Samedi, the Vodou Loa of death and sexuality, confronting the homeless. And clearly they're asking him, what's up? Why did this happen? What can you tell us? But the Baron Samedi simply stands his grounds, offering no explanation for the horror that Haitians now have to face. There's an important lesson in this painting. The Vodou gods are not omnipotent, and they were themselves victims of the malignant fate which had engulfed the whole country. Bon Dieu bon, the Haitians say, God is good, but his ways are beyond reckoning. And finally, this painting. This sculpture by a young Haitian artist friend of mine named Getho. I found this sculpture and actually brought it back to the States on my last visit to Haiti, which was last November. A year or so after the earthquake, when cholera had just entered the tent camps in Port-au-Prince, I encountered a sculpture by Getho, a young artist working on the Grand Rue, the battered main drag of Port-au-Prince. It was a rubber baby doll whose right arm had been ripped off. Her body was partially covered by strips of cloth and a brownish, waxy resin which resembled muddy scum. The few wisps of reddish hair on her head were the color of kwashiorkor. There was a bolt in her mouth and flat-headed tacks in her eye sockets. Getho had seated this ravaged baby on a square of selvage board, which was itself balanced on the plastic base of a busted 10-speed food blender. Not a single element in the construction of this sculpture had been made in Haiti. It was only Getho's genius which allowed him to discern an objective correlative to Haiti's miseries in this most improbable simulacra. From one angle, the baby is a grotesque and helpless one-armed survivor of the earthquake. From another, she's still a maimed baby, but alive and in the morning of her creation. At the same time, there's a kind of a postmodern jouissance to Getho's work, which comes from engaging with that ruined doll, a cheap, trashy plastic toy that has a use value of only a few weeks or months before it ends up in a landfill where it will rot and die. He has managed to find meaning in that throwaway, to connect it to the fate of Haiti in its season of catastrophe. Now, what I've just said is not meant to suggest that anyone should find in the visual aftermath of a calamity as general and horrendous as the earthquake of 12 January 2010 a celebration of Haitian creativity. The kind of creativity that must find expression in a busted blender and a maimed doll with screwed-in eyes and a bolt in her mouth is an art of desperation. Perhaps what can be repeated with complete honesty and with proper respect for the endurance, wisdom, and good humor of the Haitian people is one of their most common proverbs, nous l'aide, mais nous la. Nous l'aide, mais nous la, which means we're ugly, but we're here. And the corollary to that is we ain't going anywhere else. Nous l'aide, mais nous la, we're ugly, but we're here. What better way to end the talk? Thank you.